They tried to fire me at the company gala, in front of 200 people, champagne glasses, the whole show. Big mistake. My name's Howard Brenner. People call me Howie. I'm 52 years old, been with this company 17 years. Started as a project engineer, worked up to director of operations and compliance. And I'm about to tell you how I took down the VP who thought he could sunset me. But let me back up. You need to understand how this started. 4 months before that gala, I knew something had shifted. The coffee maker told me first. Sounds crazy, but hear me out. That machine's been in our break room 17 years, same as me. Still works perfectly because I maintain it. To scale it every 3 months, replace the filters on schedule. These kids with their $7 Starbucks runs don't appreciate a good office coffee that doesn't come with their name spelled wrong on the cup. About 4 months ago, I started finding it left on overnight. Water burned down to sludge, pot crusted over. Someone was staying late, using my routine, trying to look dedicated. That someone was Brandon Ashford. Brandon. This guy. 38 years old, MBA from one of those schools where they teach you buzzwords instead of actual work. Showed up with a smile like a car salesman who knows the engine's already shot. His daddy sits on the parent company's board, which explains how he walked through our door with 0 real experience and a VP title. VP of Innovation and Growth. What does that even mean? I still don't know. He rolled in with his oat milk lattes and his talk about disruption, agile frameworks, ideation hubs. Within a month, he was in President Roger Lansing's ear like a parasite. And Roger, who used to be a straight shooter, started parroting Brandon's language. Suddenly, we were pivoting and synergizing instead of just fixing problems. Brandon called it optimization. That was his favorite word. Never meant anything good. First thing he did, merged 8 with facilities management. Said it was about operational synergy. You know what happens when the guy fixing the air conditioning is also managing your database servers? Nothing good. 3 weeks later, our main system went down during a client presentation. Todd from the new IT/facilities department didn't know which storage closet had the backup drives. But Brandon just smiled and talked about learning curves. He cut long-term contractors who actually knew our systems, brought in his own people, kids from his failed startup, the one that folded faster than a cheap lawn chair. They all had the same look, button-down shirts, expensive sneakers, and that confidence that comes from never actually failing at anything important. At first, Brandon was all friendly with me. "Howie, you're essential," he'd say, hands folded like he was praying. "We value institutional knowledge." Sure you do, I thought. He didn't want my advice. He wanted my access, my passwords, my vendor relationships, my seat at the budget meetings. I gave him just enough to keep him smiling, but not enough to hang me with. Then came the erosion. That's the only word for it. Meetings I'd run for 12 years suddenly got rescheduled without me. Forgot to update the calendar, they'd say. Right. Emails where I wasn't CC'd anymore. Projects I'd built from scratch got reassigned to Todd, who once asked me if PDF files could get computer viruses. When I questioned it, Brandon would smile with all his teeth and say something about reimagining workflow dynamics. Translation: "Get out of the way, old man." But I wasn't panicking. I was watching. Watching who he talked to, who he hired, whose hands he shook. I saw how Roger started talking like he was auditioning for a TED Talk. Lean thinking, blue ocean strategy, customer journey mapping. We used to just call it doing business. I watched the younger women in the office start avoiding Brandon's glass-walled office. Caught Andrea Wolf, one of my best procurement analysts, looking shaken after a performance review. She'd run our entire vendor management system for 18 months without a single error. Has a master's degree in operations. Sharp as they come. Brandon told her she was too reactive for leadership. Too reactive. The woman who'd saved us $340,000 in contract renegotiations last year alone. Brandon didn't care about results. He cared about control. Still, I kept quiet. Kept my work flawless, my tone pleasant. Behind the scenes, I started building something. Files. Documentation. Every policy change Brandon made, every weird budget request, every Slack message he thought he'd deleted. Here's the thing about being an engineer before you're a manager. You learn to measure twice, cut once. You don't guess. You build your case like you build a structure, one solid piece at a time, until the whole thing's unshakable. I knew what Brandon was doing. He wasn't just pushing me out. He was building a narrative, making me look outdated, uncooperative, resistant to change, softening the ground so when he finally fired me, it would look like my fault, like I'd failed to adapt to the new world. Smart play. Would have worked on most people, but I wasn't most people. And Brandon made one critical mistake. He thought gray hair and reading glasses meant I was already done. He saw a legacy employee marking time until retirement. What he didn't see was a guy who'd spent 17 years learning every pressure point in this company, every relationship, every process, every number that didn't add up. I heard his real plan on a Tuesday morning. 5:47 a.m., parking garage, level B2. I'd come in early like always, coffee in a travel mug, ready to get work done before the chaos started. Brandon's voice echoed off the concrete. He was on his phone, didn't see my car 2 spaces over. Legacy employees like Brenner, you keep them around just long enough to download what they know. Then it's retirement time. Company needs to evolve or die, right? Someone on the other end laughed. I heard it through his speaker. Is he even aware he's being phased out? Doesn't matter. By the gala, he'll be gone. Clean exit, nice award, everybody smiles. Then we bring in people who actually get it. Phased out. Not fired, not let go. Phased out like I was outdated software. That's when I knew. This wasn't just corporate politics, this was personal, and it was time to stop watching. Time to start building. Brandon started picking off my team the next week. Rachel Torres, my top analyst, got moved to revenue intelligence. Whatever that means, no conversation, no transition plan, just a Slack message. Quick FYI, better fit for Rachel's talents here. Appreciate your flexibility. My flexibility? I was showing plenty of flexibility, not walking into his office and telling him exactly what I thought. Then he took Javier, my procurement specialist. The guy could negotiate a 5-year vendor contract with nothing but a whiteboard and gas station coffee. Brandon reassigned him to some cross-functional learning initiative. Really, he just needed someone who could actually read a contract, since his startup buddies couldn't tell the difference between Net 30 and FOB terms. The worst part wasn't losing them. It was the looks they gave me in the hallway. Quick, apologetic glances. They knew this wasn't a promotion. It was Brandon moving pieces on a board, and I was the king he was trying to corner. I stayed calm, dangerously calm, started documenting everything with engineer precision, color-coded files, printed agendas with timestamps, meeting notes that read like courtroom transcripts, every email saved, every Slack conversation archived before he could delete it. I wasn't building a memory book, I was building evidence. Roger stopped having breakfast with me. We used to meet Tuesdays and Thursdays, work through budget issues over burritos from the food truck outside, talk like normal people solving normal problems. Now he just nodded along in meetings while Brandon filled the room with buzzwords. Roger was completely buying it. I tried once to raise a flag, pointed out that Brandon had approved catering expenses for the annual gala running $425 per guest. Our approved vendor had quoted $145. That's not a markup, that's robbery. Roger blinked at me. Maybe you're misremembering the numbers, Howie. Brandon's got a handle on things. Misremembering. I had the invoice, had the original quote, had the approval chain showing Brandon bypassed our standard 3-bid process, but I didn't slam it on the table. Just smiled, nodded, and went back to my office. Added another page to my file. Page 43. Gaslighting attempt. Catering vendor discrepancy. 2:28 p.m. Witness, none. Look, I know this sounds paranoid, but when you've been in operations 17 years, you develop instincts, you see patterns, and the pattern I was seeing pointed to one thing. Brandon wasn't innovating. He was stealing, started pulling public records. Brandon's previous company, the failed startup, filed for bankruptcy 14 months ago. Nothing suspicious there. Startups fail. But the vendor list got interesting. Our new IT contractor, Ashford Tech Solutions. Registered owner, Brandon's cousin, Michael Ashford. The event planning company billing us triple rate, Caldwell and Associates, run by his former boss's daughter, Jennifer Caldwell. Marketing firm that couldn't spell half our product names. Whitley Digital. Owner, Brandon's college roommate, posted right there on LinkedIn. Every single vendor was connected to Brandon's personal network. Every single one was overcharging. And every single contract bypassed our normal approval process because Brandon had convinced Roger to give him operational autonomy for strategic initiatives. I had the LLC registrations, the invoice patterns, the email chains, the Slack messages he thought he'd deleted, but I'd archived using a script I wrote during the pandemic. Time to reach out. First call, Patricia Sullivan. She used to run compliance for the parent company before early retirement. I'd mentored her replacement back in 2018, helped smooth the transition. We'd stayed friendly. Holiday cards, occasional coffee. I kept the message simple. Pat, been a while. Lunch this week? Have something you might want to see. She responded in 6 minutes. Thursday work? Angelo's at noon. Angelo's is a diner near her place. Smells like burnt toast and refilled coffee. She was already in the corner booth when I arrived, reading glasses on, coffee steaming. I handed her the folder without saying anything. Let the documents speak first. She flipped through silently, stopped at page 34, looked up. He's hiring his own cousin's firm? Ashford Tech Solutions. Registered 2 months before Brandon joined us. That's not even subtle. Gets better. I leaned forward. Event company? His old boss's daughter runs it. Marketing firm? College roommate. I've got the LLC registrations, the invoice patterns, cross-references to his previous company's vendor list. It's the same network. Patricia closed the folder, took off her glasses. How much total? $247,890 I can prove. Probably more I can't. Does Roger know? Roger knows what Brandon tells him. And Brandon's been telling him I'm legacy bloat, outdated systems, resistant to change. He's building a narrative so when he fires me it looks justified. She was quiet for a moment. Then, you didn't come here for advice, Howie. No. Came to give you a heads up. This goes public in 3 weeks whether you're ready or not. Gala's the 24th. Brandon's planning to fire me that night, make it look ceremonial. Legacy award, nice speech, everybody pretends it's mutual. How do you know that? Heard him. Parking garage, thought he was alone. I didn't elaborate. Question is, do you want to be ahead of this or behind it? Patricia picked up the folder again, heavier this time. What do you need? Route this to the right people. Parent company CEO needs to see it, quietly, and I need him at that gala. He doesn't usually attend local events. Make him attend this one. She studied me. You're not just defending yourself, you're going for the throat. Brandon came for mine first. I'm just better at it. She nodded slowly. I'll make some calls. But Howie, if this goes sideways, it won't. I've been building this case for 3 months. Every number checks. Every document's verified. This isn't revenge, Pat, it's accounting. She almost smiled. I'll have an answer by tomorrow. Next stop, Neil Rodriguez. Works in the CFO's office, mid-level but sharp. Back in 2019, I helped him navigate some immigration paperwork when HR was dragging their feet. His green card application almost got derailed by bureaucracy. I made some calls, pushed some papers, got it unstuck. He owed me. Time to collect. Sent him a simple message. Need eyes on some numbers, quietly. Coffee? His reply. When? Tomorrow, 7 a.m. I'll be there. Last piece. Alfred Bancroft, board advisor, old family friend. My son's godfather, actually. Known him 20 years. Once helped him out of a jam during an earnings call crisis. He's the kind of guy who doesn't forget. I sent him a paper letter, old school, harder to trace. Alfred might want to clear your schedule for the 24th. Company Gala. Something worth seeing. Second row, left aisle. H. No explanation needed. He'd understand. By the time I got home that night, my phone buzzed. Patricia. CEO's in. He'll be there. I set the phone down, stared at my kitchen wall for a minute. 3 weeks. That's all the time Brandon had left. He just didn't know it yet. The gala smelled like expensive mistakes and cheap confidence. Rented chandeliers, crystal centerpieces, string quartet playing some corporate version of Fleetwood Mac. Waiters in bow ties serving lobster bites to people who called themselves thought leaders but hadn't had an original thought in years. I wore my Navy suit, the one I got for my 10-year service award. Pinned the company service pin on the lapel. Nothing flashy, just a guy who'd shown up and done the work for 17 years. People smiled when I walked in. You know the smile. Tight, uncomfortable. The kind that says, heard you're done, too scared to say it out loud. I smiled back, kept walking. Brandon was everywhere. Shaking hands, posing for photos, working the room like this was his coronation. The event was his baby, his showcase for the parent company. Proof he could elevate the brand or whatever meaningless phrase he was using that week. My award was scheduled last, the legacy slot, right before closing remarks. Perfect timing for what Brandon thought would be my farewell performance. I spotted Alfred Bancroft in the second row, left aisle, exactly where I'd told him to sit. He gave me a small nod, no smile, just acknowledgement. The CEO of the parent company was 3 seats over, black suit, no tie. Looked bored already. Good. Bored people pay attention when something interesting happens. I was backstage, in the wings behind the velvet curtain, reading my prepared remarks. Standard stuff about gratitude and teamwork and passing the torch. Wasn't planning to use any of it, but I had to look the part. That's when I heard Brandon's shoes, expensive loafers on cheap rental flooring. He leaned in close, voice low. Friendly, almost. "Enjoy the spotlight tonight, Howie. Last time you'll get it." I turned. He was smiling, so pleased with himself. "You're done here. Just made it official with HR. Paperwork goes out Monday, but I wanted you to know first. Professional courtesy." I didn't blink. "Appreciate that." "I'll accept the award on your behalf," he continued. "But feel free to say a few words first. Closure, you know. People like closure." "Sure," I said. "Wouldn't want to disappoint anyone." He actually patted my shoulder. Then he walked back through the curtain out to the stage. I waited exactly 10 seconds. Checked my watch, took a breath, then I walked straight out to center stage and took the second microphone from the stand. The room went silent, completely silent. Even the string quartet stopped mid-note. Brandon was halfway to the podium, confusion flickering across his face. "Good evening," I said. Calm, clear. "Quick correction to tonight's program. You could have heard a pin drop. Apparently our VP of Innovation and Growth has decided I'm, quote, done here, effective immediately. Just informed me backstage, which I thought was thoughtful timing, right before my speech." The gasps started. Chairs shifted. Champagne glasses got set down very carefully. Brandon stood frozen, microphone still in hand, face cycling through emotions he couldn't quite land on. "And since he's been making HR decisions lately," I continued, "I suppose he thought he could handle this too." That's when the CEO stood up, back of the room, moved down the center aisle, slow, deliberate, past the donors, past the board members, past Roger, who'd gone pale as paper. The CEO didn't even glance at Brandon. Walked straight to me, held out his hand for my microphone. I gave it to him. He turned to face the room. "Actually," he said, voice flat and final, "Brandon's done here." The silence that followed had weight to it, physical weight. Someone gasped. Someone else dropped a glass. The sound of it shattering was the only noise in the entire ballroom. Brandon just stood there, mouth open, no script, no pivot strategy, no buzzword that could save him. The CEO looked at me briefly, nodded once, then addressed the crowd. "I'd like to thank Howard Brenner for 17 years of service, and I'd like to apologize that his dismissal was neither authorized nor appropriate. Clean, professional, brutal." I felt the shift in the room. The oxygen changed. People weren't looking at me like a relic anymore. They were looking at me like someone who'd just survived an execution and walked away without a scratch. Brandon finally found his voice. "Wait, there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," the CEO said, cutting him off without raising his voice. "I've reviewed your recent hires, your expense approvals, and your misuse of delegated authority. Your employment is terminated effective immediately. Please return your badge and company property before leaving tonight. Tonight. Not Monday. Not let's schedule a meeting. Tonight. Now. In front of everyone." Security didn't rush the stage. They didn't need to. 2 guys in black polos just appeared from the wings, standing ready. Brandon looked around the room, looking for someone to defend him. Roger was staring at the tablecloth like it held answers. The board members were stone-faced. Nobody moved. "Are we seriously doing this here?" Brandon's voice cracked. "In front of everyone? This isn't due process." The CEO reached into his jacket, pulled out a manila envelope, opened it like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. "I thought you might say that," he said, calm as Sunday morning. "So let me read one paragraph from the internal review." He unfolded a single page. The vice president in question authorized reallocation of funds totaling $247,890 to vendors registered under names of former business associates without proper disclosure or board oversight, in direct violation of fiscal protocol. Dead silence. The CEO folded the page, slid it back in the envelope, looked at security. "Escort Mr. Ashford out. Please." They moved in. Not rough, just inevitable. One on each side. Brandon turned to Roger one last time, his ally, his sponsor, the guy who'd believed every word. Roger couldn't even look at him. Brandon's last words were weak. "This is retaliation. This is—" "Your badge," the CEO repeated. Security walked him toward the exit, slow march through the silent crowd. Every eye in the room watching. The doors closed behind him with a soft click. Then the noise started. Not applause, chaos. Board members pushing back chairs, heading for the CEO, others heading for me. Half looked furious they'd been kept in the dark. The other half looked like they'd just witnessed the second coming of accountability. "Why didn't you bring this forward sooner? Who else knew? What's the total damage?" I kept my voice steady. Same answer for everyone. I brought it to the right people at the right time. Some respected that, others hated it. None of them could argue with it. Neil Rodriguez was distributing copies of the dossier in the back of the room. Every page I'd built over 3 months. Vendor histories, bank records, email chains, Slack logs. Brandon thought he'd deleted. No emotion, just numbers, just facts, just receipts. Roger tried approaching once. I saw him coming, turned the other direction. Not because I was angry, because I was done. He'd stood by while Brandon dismantled everything we'd built. Now he could sit with that choice. The CEO caught my eye across the room, nodded toward a side door. I followed. In the hallway, quiet, just us. "We'd like you to assist with the operational transition," he said. "For stability." I waited a beat. "I'll need full access. Autonomy to restructure. No middlemen." "Understood." "And Roger's out. Already handled. He'll announce tomorrow. Health-related stress." I nodded. "Then I accept." We shook hands. He went back to the Gala. I went home. Sat in my kitchen, quiet. Stared at nothing for a while. 17 years. That's how long I'd been building this company. Brandon thought 4 months was enough to tear it down. He was wrong, and tomorrow the real work started. The email went out Monday morning at 7:06 a.m. Subject line, "Leadership Transition Update." Body text, "Effective immediately, President Roger Lansing will be stepping back from his duties due to health-related stress. We thank him for his years of service and wish him well." Health-related stress. Corporate speak for jumped before he was pushed. There was no press release, no photo montage, no farewell party, just a quiet removal of his nameplate from the executive directory and a sudden vacancy where his calendar used to be. He was still available in an advisory capacity, which meant he was home in slippers, hoping nobody subpoenaed his inbox. I got the call at 10 o'clock a.m., CEO direct line. "We'd like to formalize your role, Chief Operating Officer. You'll report directly to the board." I accept. "Good. Clean this up, Howie, however you need to." He hung up. No small talk, no congratulations, just work to do. I walked back into the building at 10:45. No escort, no announcement. Just me with a black notebook and the kind of quiet that makes people nervous. My old office had been cleared out during Brandon's renovation phase. He'd turned it into a collaboration space, whatever that means. I took Roger's office instead. Corner view, windows on 2 sides, door that actually closed. First thing I did was pull Brandon's hire list. 7 people total. Time to see what we'd actually gotten for all that disruption and innovation. Started with Todd Morrison. 3 months on payroll, title Senior Integration Analyst. Sounded impressive. I pulled his project log. 0 completed projects. Not delayed, not in progress. 0. Every deliverable had been forwarded from external contractors we were paying $280 per hour. Todd was basically an expensive email forward button. Revoked his access by noon. Security escorted him out by 12:30. He looked confused, like he genuinely didn't understand what he'd done wrong. That's the thing about incompetence. The truly incompetent never see it coming. Next was Sarah Chen from Revenue Intelligence. I called her into my office, asked her a simple question. "What does revenue intelligence mean?" She blinked. Strategic analysis of revenue streams and customer acquisition metrics to optimize growth pathways. Right. Can you show me one analysis you've completed? Long pause. Brandon said we were in the ideation phase. For 3 months? He wanted to make sure we got the framework right before we started producing. I nodded. You're reassigned to business analytics under Neil Rodriguez. He'll actually teach you something. Report to him tomorrow, 8 a.m. She left looking relieved. Not everyone in Brandon's crew was malicious. Some were just lost. But the others, the ones who'd known exactly what they were doing, they were gone by end of week. Brandon's cousin Michael, the IT contractor billing us $180 per hour for work his firm wasn't qualified to do. Contract terminated, effective immediately. Sent him a polite email thanking him for his service. Didn't mention I'd also sent his invoice pattern to the parent company's legal team. The event planning company, Caldwell and Associates, the one that charged us $425 per guest for food that cost them maybe $90, I had their contract up for renewal. Denied. Switched back to our original vendor, the one who'd given us the $145 quote. Saved the company $89,000 on the next event alone. Whitley Digital, the marketing firm run by Brandon's college roommate, they'd billed us $67,000 over 4 months for social media management. I pulled the analytics. Our engagement had actually dropped 23% during their tenure. Fired them, brought it in-house, hired 2 sharp kids from the local college's marketing program for half the cost. By the end of week 2, I'd cut $340,000 in wasteful spending. The budget team actually smiled when they saw the numbers, but the real work wasn't the cuts, it was the rebuild. Brandon had gutted things that actually mattered. The mentorship program I'd started 8 years ago, the one that helped junior employees move into leadership roles. He'd killed it, said it didn't align with our agility roadmap. First thing I reinstated, put out a company-wide email. Mentorship program returning starting next month. Applications open to all employees with 2+ years experience. Got 47 applications in the first week. I tapped Andrea Wolf to run the operations track. The woman Brandon had called too reactive for leadership. She came to my office the day I asked her. You serious about this? She said. You ran our vendor system for 18 months without an error. Saved us $340,000 in renegotiations. Yeah, I'm serious. Brandon said I wasn't leadership material. Brandon's gone, and he was wrong about a lot of things. She nodded slowly. When do we start? 2 weeks. I'll need you to build the curriculum. She left with purpose in her step. That's what good people need. Not buzzwords and collaboration spaces. Just someone who sees their work and trusts them to do more of it. I pulled Rachel Torres back from revenue intelligence. Put her back in operations analysis where she belonged. She walked into my office cautious, like she was expecting a trap. You're not in trouble, I said. I'm fixing what got broken. You want your old role back? Yes. No hesitation. It's yours, starting tomorrow. Javier took a little longer to track down. Brandon had buried him so deep in cross-functional learning initiatives that nobody could find him on the org chart. I called him directly. Javier, it's Howie. Where are you right now? Honestly, I have no idea. I'm in some task force about workflow optimization. We've had 14 meetings and haven't made a single decision. You're out of there as of now. Back to procurement. I need someone who can actually negotiate contracts. I heard him exhale. Thank God. I was starting to think I'd imagined that I used to be good at something. You're still good at it. Report Monday. Meetings started running on time. Emails got shorter, clearer. People stopped looking over their shoulders before speaking up. The compliance training Brandon had called bureaucratic waste reinstated it. Turns out knowing the actual rules helps people do their jobs better. I brought back the quarterly budget reviews Brandon had eliminated, the ones where department heads had to actually explain their spending. First meeting, half of them looked terrified. By the third meeting, they were catching their own inefficiencies before I had to point them out. The thing about good process is, it's boring. It doesn't sound innovative. It doesn't make for inspiring LinkedIn posts. But it works. And after 4 months of Brandon's innovation theater, people were hungry for things that actually worked. Neil Rodriguez stopped by my office one afternoon, dropped a folder on my desk. 6-week numbers, he said. I opened it. Operating efficiency up 23%, budget waste down 40%, customer satisfaction scores up 12%. We're actually running like a company again. he said. "We are a company. That's the whole point." He almost smiled. "Just wanted you to see it in writing." After he left, I sat there for a minute looking at those numbers. Not because they made me proud, though they did, because they proved something I'd known all along. You don't build a company with buzzwords and performance art. You build it with people who know what they're doing, processes that make sense, and leaders who trust both enough to get out of the way. Brandon had thought he could replace all that with disruption and agile frameworks. Thought experience was a liability instead of an asset. Thought 17 years of institutional knowledge could be sunset like outdated software. He was wrong. 3 months after the gala, the board made my COO position permanent. Full authority, direct reports, seat at every strategic meeting. Alfred Bancroft was the one who called to tell me, "Board's unanimous, Howie. You've earned it." Thanks, Alfred. One question, though. When did you know? When did you know you had him? I thought about it. The parking garage, when I heard him say I was being phased out. That's when I knew he'd underestimated me, and that was going to cost him everything. Alfred laughed. "Remind me never to underestimate you." "You won't. You're my son's godfather. You're smarter than that. I'm training 3 new managers now, teaching them what I learned the hard way. Measure twice, cut once. Build your case solid before you move. Let the work speak louder than the words. Trust people who deliver results, not people who deliver presentations." One of them asked me last week, "What do you do when someone's trying to push you out?" I thought about it. Document everything, build relationships, stay calm, and remember that competence is the best revenge. That's it. That's it. Flashy loses to fundamentals every time. You just have to be patient enough to prove it. The coffee maker's still running, still maintained every 3 months, filters replaced on schedule. These days, other people have started taking care of it too. Somebody descaled it last week without me asking. Left a note. Figured it was time. "Thanks for keeping this thing alive." Small thing. But it matters. I've got a meeting in 10 minutes. Budget review with the department heads. Nothing exciting, nothing innovative. Just people doing their jobs, doing them well, building something that lasts. Brandon thought experience was something to phase out, something that held companies back from evolving. He was wrong about that too. Experience doesn't hold you back. It's what keeps you standing when someone tries to knock you down. It's knowing which fights to pick and which battles to let time win for you. It's understanding that the loudest voice in the room is rarely the smartest one. Brandon's gone. Roger's gone. The whole crew of innovation theater performers gone. And me? I'm still here, still working, still building, because that's what experience does. It waits for the right fight, and when that fight comes, it doesn't lose.